Hello, beautiful listeners. Joanna here from Mindful Counseling, also known as GDS Counseling. So I know I have not done a podcast in a while, and I know a lot of times we find ourselves saying we don't have time, but realistically speaking, we do. We can find a few minutes of our day to take care of ourselves or to do something that we truly enjoy. And for me, the enjoyment of podcast is truly there. But to be honest with you, with all of you listeners, is the reason that I actually have not done a podcast in a few weeks is for some of the personal reasons. So I needed to take care of my own self-care, my own things that were going on in my life. And in some ways they still are. And they require a lot of self-care and a lot of time where I need to focus just on myself, putting everything aside. So part of that, excuse or not excuse, is putting podcast aside so that way I can take care of myself. So here I am back at it again, something that I truly enjoy and something that I know I can sure give a lot of time and dedication to, especially when I'm at work in between my working hours. So I was trying to figure out what to talk about, and especially after being on, I guess what we would call it, a hiatus for a few weeks. And I have a lot of thoughts that come into my mind, especially with a lot of different things that have occurred in the recent weeks, whether it is personally, but also with what's been going on in the world. So I did have a lot of different ideas and they're still there, but I also want to focus on just one primary topic. So I figured, just for the sake of today's conversation, I wanted to continue the topic of self-care along with importance of boundaries. And I say boundaries and I emphasize on it because of how important healthy boundaries are. And even when I say the word boundaries, what comes to your mind when I say it? You can think it and you can actually say it out loud, which sometimes I encourage because it becomes a little bit more real in our own conversation, in our own inner world. So boundaries, healthy boundaries, and how important they are with the people around you, whether it is your family members, which sometimes is probably the most difficult when it comes to healthy boundaries, your friends, acquaintances, and so forth. Now, I'm also letting you know that I am sitting in my office today because that is my boundary from just the world itself, clients, separations, and having an alone time. However, I am also mindful that there might be some noises in the background because I am in an office where there is a lot of different offices and there might be some noises in the background. So if you happen to hear some of the noises, please bear with me. I will try to make sure that I don't allow those noises to impact this podcast. So going back into boundaries, when we think of healthy boundaries and how important they are for you, and that requires your own self-care, your own awareness, how important a boundary is. Imagine yourself, for those of you that are already doers, and you do a lot, and you do give a lot, and take care of others, prioritize others. A lot of times you have a tendency to not prioritize yourself because you're very quick to take care of others. Sometimes at what expense? At what cost? We take care of others. We take care of everybody else but us because there's a certain feeling that kind of overwhelms us if we don't do. And that feeling is guilt. If we don't do, we feel guilty. We feel bad. Sometimes there's shame put on us because of those situations. So going back into those boundaries is the ability to address at which point you need to actually be aware and address the boundary. At which point do you need to acknowledge yourself and your own needs, that maybe they are in fact a lot more important as opposed to somebody else's needs. Now, I'm not sitting here saying don't do for others. What I'm saying is being able to balance it, being able to not to take someone else's emotions because you feel like you have to, being able to not take somebody else's feelings because once again you have to, and that's very easy to take on. And other people feel, oftentimes they become our feelings, and then we are the ones providing and giving. Once again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's the part of recognition, the part of you that can actually say no, the part of you that can actually say, you know what? Today is the day where I'm not going to do this and I'm going to do this. Instead of always doing the A, choose to do B. So when it comes to healthy boundaries, certain personalities have a tendency to be taken advantage of a lot easier, a lot quicker than others. And those personalities tend to be people who are caretakers. Now, I'm probably just generalizing it, so I'm being mindful of it when I say that as well. But those that give a lot, those that share a lot, those that will put their needs aside, like I said earlier, have a tendency to sometimes be taken advantage of a little bit more than, let's say, those that can actually address their own self-care needs, their own healthy, like I say, narcissism. We all have wants and needs, and sometimes we are just not aware of how important they are to us. So, I'm sitting in my office today, and I have at least 45 minutes free time where I can do whatever I want. I can go on my chair. I can go on I have a couch in my office I can lay on. I can do whatever I want. I can step out really quick, go outside for a walk, or I can actually choose to sit here for the few minutes and do this podcast. Why did I choose to do this podcast today and maybe not any other day? It's because I'm recognizing that I have time, that I have this moment to give, that I have this moment to be aware that I would like to speak and express how important certain things are, and I'd like to give that to others, along with the same time addressing my own needs, that I enjoy this, that I enjoy this part of being able to help others, while at the same time addressing that this is my own self-care as well. So I'm able to balance it. I give. I'm not looking for anything in return, but at the same time, I enjoy it. Healthy boundaries means self-care. Healthy boundaries means you taking care of yourself and your own needs, even if it's a few minutes of a day. The ability to say to someone who you have very strong feelings about, not in a necessarily a positive way, but in a frustrating way, or that you feel like you have to do, or you have to give, in that moment that you can actually address your own needs and say, not today. Self-care comes from your own ability to say yes to yourself, your own ability to take care of yourself. So think about your own boundaries. What boundaries do you have with others? Do you have healthy boundaries with others? And there might be a difference between the two, a boundary as opposed to healthy boundary. A boundary can mean anything that comes to my mind right now can be just a separation, avoidance, maybe not dealing with things. Healthy boundary means the ability to deal with things in a more addressing awareness, self-caring way. That's the way I'm looking at both of those. So when you ask yourself a question of what a boundary is, what comes to your mind? And even with this podcast and the things that I'm saying is, what do you make of it? Do you feel like you need a healthy boundary somewhere today or with someone today? And we all need them. When I say we all need them, I mean even with our children. We need a boundary with our children, a healthy boundary. The ability that they're able to take care of themselves in some ways and that we're able to trust that they can take care of themselves, as well as us being able to take care of ourselves and not necessarily always run there. The healthy boundaries with our partners, that we don't have to necessarily do everything, but that we can take care of ourselves as well. Now, the other part of healthy boundaries or boundaries in general is that we'll get a kickback. The part of others saying how come, or questioning why we're not doing, or why not, or oh, that's too bad or too sad. Says who? So, the moment you start addressing your own healthy boundaries, you might get a kickback from others, a strong response as to why you're taking care of yourself. Because deep in your mind, you're not supposed to take care of yourself. That's what we tell ourselves. So ask yourself a question today, maybe today, right now, at the end of this podcast. How do I address my own needs when it comes to having a healthy boundary with my children, with my partner, with my friends, and with my family members? And maybe what is one thing that I would like to do for myself today that is good and healthy, and that I can actually acknowledge it, that it's something that I want to do. Now I bet, I don't know, I like numbers, statistics, but I would bet that most of you right now who might say, let's give ourselves a healthy boundary today, let's do one loving thing for myself today, that you might forget, because other responsibilities will come your way. So which means that we quickly forget to take care of ourselves yet again. And it takes practice and it takes discipline. So in conclusion of this podcast, once again, how do you address your own healthy boundary? And what is one thing that you can give yourself today that will give you self-care, self-awareness, something good that feels good, that can make you smile, and that can make you say, you know what, I did this for myself and I did not have to do it for someone else today. Take a deep breath, and with that, move forward with your life. Until next time, be well and be safe.